All right, welcome into episode 2 of Who's Got Next. This is Zach Libby. On the other side of the screen, I am Brandon Justice. This is the Maize and Blue Reviews recruiting podcast every Tuesday from now through the football season and all the way through the second signing day. We're back after episode 1 and here for episode 2, starting to get towards the middle of August here, Zach. And as we start to embark on September and football season starts here at the end of the month, recruiting will obviously heat up as a byproduct of that. So you've been on some trips, you've seen some players. Michigan's also gotten some commits along the way, and you've been kind of tagging around. What's it been like just being on the road and seeing a lot of I know you've been at a lot of practices, seeing a lot of these teams getting ready for their seasons. What have the vibes been like? What's some of the things you've picked up and some takeaways you've had, maybe not from a recruiting perspective, but just from it's about to be football season perspective?
Yeah. Well, throughout this month of August, if you've subscribed to our website, obviously you've seen how much we've been on the road this year and how many press conferences that we've been at. This is the perfect time. I'm going to plug in we're subscribed to the website right now just because of how much information that everyone on staff is providing from team to recruiting. With recruiting, I have not slept at home probably maybe twice this whole month. We have been to St. Louis. We have been to, right now we're in Chicago. We have seen pretty much the entire state of Michigan, and we're still 2 weeks into the month. So gearing up for fall camp for the high schools, getting full access to these players that Michigan is targeting, and just seeing their overall feelings about the team. This is the perfect time to get their opinion as they're getting focused now into the season. So it's the perfect time to, get out on the road and do what we do best, is report on the team and give the best coverage possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've covered a lot of ground, as you've mentioned, over the past month, doing God's work for some people that sit here and enjoy the recruiting information. Such a fluid category of coverage is something that changes day by day, month by month. And like you mentioned, we were talking before the show about Jaden Davis, who we might not talk about too much today compared to last week. And I'm sure we'll mention him for weeks and weeks and weeks on and forward as they continue to recruit him. But Davis is a guy, like you mentioned, where, right now it seems like Michigan's the favorite. Absolutely. Gun to head, we're going to pick Michigan as his favorite. However, who knows when he commits and who knows what happens in between then and now. And that is pretty much the tale of recruiting. But going out there and getting the intimate conversations that you've had throughout these trips you've taken surely mean a lot and give a coverage to our site that differentiates and provides some perspective that I know a lot of guys are going around and going to practices, but man, you've been pretty tirelessly working, going to so many of them. And, we as a staff appreciate it, but the members do too. So moving on from that to talk more about your trips from a recruiting perspective, who have you seen? What are some takeaways and some guys that might be trending positive towards Michigan? Let's start with your trip to Chicago, the one you're fresh off of. I know you have 2 more practices to see tomorrow, but from the practice that you saw today, what stood out?
Yeah, so today I just got in today. I'm in the Airbnb right now in Oswego, which is, obviously the home of the high school of Deacon Tony Alley. We're in Chicagoland until Wednesday night. I'm here to see 4 prospects, including Deacon, but also 3 24 targets that are highly on top of the boards for Michigan, including Rivals 250 Edge, Marquise Lightfoot, who we saw today. If you want to get highlights of him and what he has to say, check out my Twitter link. Is at below if you're watching on video. But article will be out tomorrow. But tomorrow we're also going to see Marion Stewart, another 2 Rivals 250 wide receiver, and then on Wednesday, we're going to go see Justin Scott, the defensive lineman from St. Ignatius, who is, in my opinion, the top 24 target in the entire country. We'll look forward to that later. Last week, we were in St. Louis, where we got to see 5-star Ryan Wingo, who visited earlier this summer. One of a generational talents, putting it shortly, who is seriously considering Michigan, despite the fact that he has probably every FES option to choose from. Notre Dame and Missouri and Arkansas, to name a few. But he's one to look out for once September 1st hits, and we could expect him to be on the sidelines this fall. And then the following day, we got to see Frederick Moore, the 4-star 23 commit at wide receiver. We posted a long feature story on that last week, so be sure to check that out. And then for the rest of the week, we were in Michigan, Cass Tech, Dexter, River Rouge, Roseville.
Which is notably downriver. I got that wrong. Huge botch on my part as a downriver expert to forget that River Rouge historically and geographically is in downriver. And I completely botched that. So hand up, ownership, accountability. Continue. Sorry, I just had to point that out.
It's just embarrassing that a kid from Rochester knows more about your area than you do.
I know, right? All the trash I talk about, and I don't even know what's what. What a shame. What a shame. So tell me about this. Let's go on. Go on with your story. Like, where else did you go? I want to also point out that the Frederick Moore story was awesome, and everybody should read it if you haven't yet. Zach has this like innate ability to write extremely good stories and also have like the work ethic to travel the world in a day, like Lewis and Clark in their prime. So it's a great hybrid. And so I highly recommend you go read the Frederick Moore story. But continue with your with the trips. We still want to hear about those.
Yeah, I guess we'll go in order. Wednesday, Cass Tech. We all know who they are and what they've done and the dynasty that they've built over this century. This Cass Tech is loaded with 25 and 26 guys who already have Michigan offers and are going to be high on the boards once it's their time to decide. So be sure to follow them, including the younger cousin of Dante Moore. So that's one to look out for. Thursday, we were at Dexter to see Cole Cabana because we haven't seen him since the winter. He was busy with track season. It was good catching up with him as well as his coach. I just posted an article today, which is Monday. So you get to see what his thoughts are heading into January because he'll be graduating early, as well as his coach and how much he appreciates Cole's efforts this whole 4 years. Roseville obviously has Amari Snowden on the roster. We also did a feature on him, even though he doesn't have a Michigan offer, but be sure to go on our forum by subscribing and see what's the latest update on him. River Rouge arguably has the best wide receiver in the state of Michigan since Donovan Peoples-Jones, which is a 7-year span, and 24 Nicholas Marsh, who just committed to Michigan State. So we went down there to see what his plans are with the recruiting process, even though he's already committed. So we also wrote a column / feature on Michigan not refusing to give up on, like I said, one of the top wide receivers in this entire century in this state. And then Saturday, Belleville High had their scrimmage. Belleville is home to, in my opinion, the top quarterback in the 25 class, and Bryce Underwood has made previous visits to Michigan in the past and will come back soon. If Dante Moore was talked about as high as he has, then Bryce Underwood's going to have another layer added to it because of how high his ceiling and how talented this kid is in the pocket. If you haven't seen Bryce Underwood live or on his film, especially if you live in the metro area, I highly recommend going see him in a game because, for one, he's a defending state champion. He's a Max Preps All-American, and he is already climbing to 30 offers. So if Michigan prioritizes Dante, they're going to prioritize Bryce Underwood even more. And then, Monday, here we are. We're in Chicago.
You forgot your days, right? That's how it goes.
It's one drive after another, man. This is nothing like anything I've ever done before, and I can't thank you and Josh enough for giving me this. So anything to help out the site and grow this thing, which, nothing but big things ahead come September when you guys are in the press box. So there's so much things to look forward to, man.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. Like the synergy is there for our team. And I mean, while we're on the topic, like we had a tough shot coming in here and doing the things we had to do, but it was a long-term plan from the jump, and we're starting to see it not come to fruition yet, but we're certainly seeing the vision is much more clear, right? Whereas a lot of things were originally more so ideas and, just coming up with directions we wanted to go. Now we're really there and everything's set up. And when September hits, we're certainly ready and looking forward to it. So let's move on from your trips and let's talk a little bit about a commitment. Now, Michigan recruiting has been a polarizing topic of conversation over the past few months. We already had that talk last week, so let's leave that conversation to the side. Let's focus on Zach Marshall. You mentioned him before. Julian saying the 2023 quarterback is his quarterback in California at Carlsbad. So talk a little bit about him, the tight end, 6'4", 210 pounds. Rivals has him as a 3-star, 5.6 overall ranking. Michigan, look, man, like we can have the conversation about Michigan recruiting a caliber of a player and a recruit. Luke Schoonmaker wasn't the biggest tight end out of high school. Even Jake Butt wasn't the biggest 10 out of high school, if you really want to get to the extremes. I know it's a different staff, but even looking at the rankings, if you're going to trust Michigan with anything, it's with recruiting tight ends. So tell us a bit about Marshall and what you foresee for him as a projection when he gets to Ann Arbor.
Yeah, so we got to start at the beginning. Marshall, who is from Greater Los Angeles for his senior year, originally from San Diego. But he first got in contact with Grant Newsome back in May. They were on and off, texting, calling, getting to know each other, learning about each other. But then about a few weeks before the barbecue, Marshall did get the invite to go. The idea was for Marshall to work out before enjoying the festivities, like the food and everything at the big house, and then work privately with Grant. It happened in the morning, went really well, apparently. But he did not get offered. Zach did not get offered at the workout. So he was told to get back into his rental car with his family and drive to the big house from Schembechler. Now, obviously, Schembechler is probably like a 2 or 3 minute drive from Michigan Stadium. But according to Zach, it probably felt like an hour, just, going through his head of what he did wrong, what he did right. Did he actually get an offer, or is he going to leave empty-handed? Arrived at the big house, didn't see anyone on the field, was told to go up to either the suite or the press box, wherever they were having the food. And that's where he saw Grant sitting there and got the offer. Obviously he left with everything that he set out to accomplish. We talked to him right after and was told us that Michigan's going to get an official visit in September, which was when he was planning on dropping, all of his officials, being that he didn't take any in June. And due to California's transfer rules, he has to sit out the first 4 games of the season at Carlsbad. But instead, about 5 days after the offer, about the weekend after the offer, he announced his top 3 and made it official that he was going to commit on Saturday. Now, Michigan was the latest to offer and the only non-Power 5 school outside of the West Coast to offer. So it came down to Cal and Utah, but Arizona, Washington State, and Boise State were also in the mix, sort of. But no, this is it took them less than 2 weeks to decide that Michigan was going to be a school. And outside of the fact that, Zach had a lot of respect for Grant and how young he is and being a former member of the program, he also had relationships with the co-OCs and Harbaugh. But also he just enjoyed learning about how he can be a leader of the Ann Arbor community. We've mentioned this before of Michigan wanting guys that fit their culture and fit the Michigan mantra. If there's anything about Zach Marshall that can be said about him, he's going to be someone that's going to be walking away with a degree from Michigan. It only helps that now that even though he's a 3-star and like number 53 in the country, that he's going to get more exposure. As we said, now that Julian Sayin is going to be his quarterback for his senior year, and they're really good friends. Julian has been offered and visited Michigan before, so there's that commonality. But no, this is the 9th commitment since mid-June. So any naysayers that we've heard in the spring about Michigan failing to garner a commit, we haven't heard from in these last 2 months. So it's been really refreshing to hear. Any talk of Michigan failing to grasp the NIL concept or failing to grab, additions or important additions to the class has trickled down almost to a halt starting in mid-June when Deacon committed, and then on July 1st when we started to see the overflow of additions. But no, Zach is, second kid from California to commit to Michigan. So, their presence in greater Los Angeles and just Southern Cal in general is really shown with Marshall and now with Collins, a Chiampon. But no, this is a kid who fits everything that Michigan sets out to be for students on and off the field. He's a great guy to know, and just an overall great personality and attitude with how to go about being a football player as well as a man. So if anything, this is exactly what Grant Newsome and the staff want in a player, and they got him. And it only took less than a week for that to happen. So it's the start. It's continuing the momentum of what began less than 2 months ago.
For sure, no doubt. Well, that's positive reports there. Michigan dipping into Cali. We know at one point a California commitment went by the name of Tom Brady, and I know that there's been about a gajillion more California recruits since then, but it's always fun to bring him up. I know fans love to hear that. I wonder when the last tight end they got from California was, or if it's happened. Devin Asiasi? I think that would be the answer. Devin Asiasi in 2016, who went on to have a pretty solid career at UCLA after transferring after his freshman year. So let's rope it back, talk a little bit about some comments made by Matt Weiss a couple weeks ago, or it might have been last Monday. Feels like forever ago. The weeks are taking long as we approach the season. But Michigan's offensive coordinator, Matt Weiss, had some comments in regards to recruiting. As people know, he is shifting into the world of recruiting, coming from a different background that didn't involve recruiting, and especially given that NIL is like a totally different beast for all these coaches to handle, and some of them are pressing gas too much, some of them aren't pressing enough gas, and some of them have found that sweet spot. Weiss seems to be on a little bit more on the other side of it, but he talked about relationships and he talked about many other things. So, Zach, I know you wanted to kind of sound off a little bit about this. So tell us what you think here about what Coach Weiss had to say.
Well, I wanted to bring this up in the podcast because, for one, I was actually at the presser taking video. So getting to hear it firsthand, like I remember just hearing him say it, and it just brought up like it just matriculated in my mind of like, who is he referring to?
Right.
Like, who's he referring to? Like, what is he getting at? Like, why is he sharing so much about recruiting when he really didn't have to? And if you want to check out what he actually said, we have an article on that written by Josh, which has, a full page of transcriptions concerning recruiting. But I think the biggest part was just, like you said, how much relationships go into that facet. Being that he was from the NFL, like he mentioned, like players go and sign or get, professional players sign with an NFL team where they know they can win and be utilized in a system that fits their play style. Matt has learned, he said that there's more to it than just the system and the team overall. Like you probably came into this new job at Michigan thinking everybody wants to go to Michigan because it's Michigan, but in reality, there's more layers to it. So in regards to relationships, obviously he didn't name drop players, but it kind of it leads to the question, like, who's he referring to? Is it Dante Moore? Is it someone else? I mentioned Dante just because of the criticism that Weiss was getting, especially after Moore committed to Oregon, about personalities not meshing or Weiss not stepping foot on the gas pedal in regards to getting after him. But if you actually talk to people close to Moore, especially, someone like his head coach at Detroit King, it's quite the opposite. But it's Weiss is going to continue to be him, even if guys like Moore maybe don't see, them being best friends, I guess.
Right.
But it's not to say that Weiss is doing a terrible job in recruiting, because it's quite the opposite too. Because I mentioned this in a forum post a couple of weeks ago of the list of quarterbacks that have mentioned to us, this website, about their liking of Weiss and his genuine approach to focusing on the X's and O's and the system, as opposed to being a hoorah kind of guy. I can give an example, like Cutter Boley, 25 quarterback out of Kentucky, who's visited twice this summer. Like, he compares Weiss to his offensive coordinator, where Weiss won't be in your face yelling or screaming or insulting you, instead, when he does talk, you listen. There's other quarterbacks like, Ryan Montgomery of Ohio, who's loved Weiss from what we've been heard. Other quarterbacks, obviously, like Jaden Davis, has said great things about Weiss in interviews. So, I think Weiss has done his time in the ringer this offseason, especially with the Dante drama. But he's the perfect mesh to find a quarterback that will, believe in the system and the culture at Michigan, as opposed to finding money or commercial deals. Some quarterbacks just want to throw the ball, and Weiss is going to get the guy that actually wants to win at Michigan, as opposed to maybe off the field benefits. So it's important that for people to recognize that this is Matt Weiss is supported by everyone in the coaching staff. He's supported by current recruits, and he's going to be here for a long time, if he wants to. So I do not expect more criticism down the road, because Weiss will and learn from what happened this offseason and ultimately be better with relationships.
Very informal, Mr. Libby, on everything going around the world with Matt Weiss. And the co-offensive coordinator, Sharon Moore, has done a good job recouping from a slow start with the offensive line, landing a guy. So we're starting to see those two coordinators who weren't coordinators before becoming them this year settle into their roles as OCs. So with that being said, we just want to wrap this up with a quick little hitter on some of the key targets Michigan has left on the board. So hit me with some quick hitters on 3 guys Michigan has you determine as key targets and where they're at with those 3.
I just want to mention Moore real quick. Since you brought him up, since I'm in Chicago and this is Moore's main hub of the Midwest. Important people in the city have said really great things about Sharon Moore and his recruiting tactics of being well down to earth and almost like an uncle role to these players. So if anything, the White Moore is more than ready to be a leader in this recruiting game and maybe one day become a head coach. So it shows what he can do on the trail. But certain targets, there's a list of them. Let's start first with who they can get in order to climb up the recruiting standings, because that's been a topic of discussion for quite some time. There was at one point where Michigan was number 58 in the country by rivals in the 23 class. Last time we talked, it was number 38. Because of Marshall's commitment, it's number 30 right now. But they're also number 16 in star average rating. So it just shows that Michigan is getting quality over quantity compared to, let's say, Texas Tech or Wake Forest. But in terms of the recruits that can bump Michigan up to what fans want is a top 10 recruiting class. Number one, Nicholas Harbor, who we are expected to go see next week once DC starts football the following Friday. So that'll be good to see him and talk with him. Another one, Javian Toviano, the cornerback out of Texas, who we mentioned last podcast. Lockdown cornerback, but has an array of options. So this is a home run hire. And then another one that no one really talks about is Spencer Fano, an offensive tackle out of Utah. He's visited before and back in April. He is another Rivals 250 member. No one really talks about him much because he got offered, earlier in the offseason, and Moore has offered about 4 or 5 guys in this month, in last month alone. So there's been more options. But in terms of Fano coming on board, he is the highest rated offensive tackle or offensive lineman on the board right now that's uncommitted. So he's one to look out for in terms of officially visiting. But no, there's a bunch of high 3s, low 4s, and guys that aren't going to be on top of the rankings, but they're still commodities. Zach Marshall, Evan Link, Deacon Tonielli. There's just guys that fit the system, but maybe don't have the credit that Rivals may give them that they probably deserve. We can go on the list. Nathan Afobe, Atlanta, Georgia. Offensive lineman, Mikey Matthews, a 3-star wide receiver out of California. Sid Kaba, defensive tackle out of Columbus, Ohio. Chris Peel, 3-star cornerback out of the Providence Day High School. So, everyone knows what's going on at that high school. But no, there's still at least a dozen more targets that Michigan is still eyeing that is uncommitted. There's at least room for 10 more guys, and to think that Michigan's going to end in December with 14 commits is just laughable. So, if anything, the momentum that we've seen in June in the month of August and July will matriculate into, I use that word again, but use it into the fall, especially with September and October official visits nearing. So there's more guys on the lookout. We will have a forum post soon of all the guys that that Michigan is eyeing. So be on the lookout for that, just to keep you in the loop. But no, this is every signs are pointing the right direction for Michigan to continue trending up. Like I said, quality over quantity is going to outbeat anything. Guys are going to leave, guys are going to flip, guys are going to change their minds. And guys may just, fall off the commitment list because there's just too many. So if anything, I'll just put it sweet. There's no way that Michigan finishes below Northwestern, Wake Forest, Duke, Texas Tech, and the rest of the teams that are historically below Michigan. So there's still time left to make some noise this fall. And then ultimately in December, we can put the criticism to rest of this class unable to parallel last season's success.
I wonder what would happen if they did. I wonder what the board would look like if Michigan finished behind all those schools you just listed, which I truly 100% agree with you on. It won't happen. But it is kind of funny to think about the dystopian landscape that would be the Den in the event that they did finish behind them. But again, I thoroughly believe they won't. So I don't think we'll have to worry about that. Well, with all that being said, Zach gave us so much information as he always does. So we appreciate it. Next Tuesday, we'll be back at it again. We were starting bi-weekly to start and kind of let August breathe. But with Zach in so many places and with us being in some places, we will have a new show next week. We'll be joined by Ari Wasserman of The Athletic, so make sure you guys tune in. He'll come on the show. He's going to play a little devil's advocate and tell us what he thinks Michigan's done wrong on the recruiting trail, as well as some things he thinks they've done right. But he will kind of play a little devil's advocate and give us an opportunity to give our take versus his take, and I think it'll be some entertaining audio, and if you're watching on YouTube, video. And on that topic, if you are watching on YouTube and you've got to see these two mean mugs for the last 45 minutes, or actually only 30 minutes, but if you've been able to see these two mean mugs, you'll see below us, it says to subscribe to the Maize and Blue review. And this is going to sound like a mouthful on the audio, so if you're on YouTube, just go ahead and look at that link. But if you're listening, michigan.rivals.com/sign_up. michigan.rivals.com/sign_up. Make sure you guys head there. I'm sure we'll have some more deals before the season. But look, guys, $9.99 a month to get this information nonstop in the most fluid category in sports, which is recruiting, on top of all the intel from Josh Henschke, along with some stories from myself, Trevor McHugh, film reviews from the likes of Stephen Osentoski, Lucas Rymanek, Brock Helig's there doing a bunch of work as well. We've got a great team. We'd love to have you. A great community filled with so many good, genuine members with information, but also just a true community. It's more than worth it, and we will make it worth your while. That is our promise to keep. So join us at the Maize and Blue Review. Go ahead and get to michiganrivals.com/sign_up. We'll see you there on the Den. Let us know you listen to the show, and that's why you signed up. Maybe we'll give you a shout out on the show next time. But until then, that wraps up this week. Like I said, next week we'll be joined by Ari Wasserman. It'll be, I'm not sure if Josh will join us next week, but at the very least you'll get us two plus Ari. We're looking forward to it. Going to be a great show. Zach's legs don't stop moving. He'll wake up tomorrow, head to the other side of Chicago, and continue to work hard and keep the boots on the ground, and we'll see where he ends up next. We gave him the freedom to write our schedules for the fall. I'm a little nervous to see mine, but we're excited to see what happens there. So for Zach Libby, I am Brandon Justice. You can follow Zach on Twitter at RivalsLibby. You can follow me at BrandonJustice_, and you can follow the site at Michigan Rivals. You can also find us on Instagram, Maize Blue Review, TikTok, same thing. And we've got all the socials going strong. So if you like social media and you like Michigan, there's no reason to do anything else but follow us on all those socials, including your favorite two podcast hosts, Brandon Justice, Zach Libby. All right, with all that being said, that's my housekeeping for the week. We'll talk to you guys next week. We appreciate you tuning in to Who's Got Next. We will see you next Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. We're getting closer and closer, folks. It's almost fall.